On today's show, Xander Bogaerts, he's getting the Eric Hosmer allegations. We got to talk about his really, really poor stretch as of late, where we are with him overall with the Padres and the team going forward, and then talking a little about this San Francisco Giants series, a little mini preview for you folks, and a whole lot more. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for Tuesday, April 29th. As always, I'm your host with sometimes occasionally, but certainly not always the most, Javier Reyes. You can follow me on Twitter /X and Blue Sky at Javipeno, Javiipeno, where you can reach out and talk to me about whatever it is with Padres lore and questions. Feel free to do that. You can also leave comments in the YouTube as well. Today's episode, guys, is brought to you by the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox, no console needed. Head to amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. What's up, everybody? Today's episode, we are talking about Xander Bogaerts, the Eric Hosmer allegations. This is the general vibe of this player who has very easily become the biggest question for the Padres, I think, going forward, and potentially the biggest liability for the Padres, better said, for the Padres going forward for what will obviously be a long stretch of time. Then we're talking about San Francisco, and we might even answer a mailbag question I got a whole while back that has to do with Hosmer and has to do with Bogaerts too, in a weird sort of way. So a little bit of a fun one for you. We were going to do a crossover series with Ben Kaspic. I mentioned this on yesterday's show. My apologies. He got a little bit sick. So everybody, thoughts over to my man, Ben. He is great over at Locked On Giants. Go subscribe to his podcast. Anyway, just why not? Go leave him a nice comment because he is an awesome dude. So he is not available for today's episode. So you just get me. You're stuck with me. Let's first, with this Xander Bogaerts thing, talk about where he is this season. And where he is this season is, how do I put this? Quite bad. He's in a quite bad space when it comes to this. Currently, he is slashing .242 with a .336 on base and a .326 slugging. That's good for a 90 WRC plus. He's got .1 wins above replacement, and he has 5 RBIs on the season. Where do I start? First of all, it is quite discouraging that this is what he's hitting despite having a .315 BABIP. It's not like he's getting super unlucky in that regard. It's a little bit low, but still, it's a little bit unfortunate, right? That's just one thing. I think the most disturbing thing here is obviously the on base. When your on base percentage is higher than your slugging percentage, that's not great. You know what I mean? That's actually pretty difficult to do. And a big reason for that is because Xander Bogaerts' barrel rate is only 1.4% this year. He only has 1. Right, and it makes in the bottom percentile in all of Major League Baseball. There's very few guys with a lower barrel rate than Xander Bogaerts right now. Most of his stuff, it's occasionally being hit hard, but it goes on the ground. We talked about this on yesterday's show. Yes, he had a hard hit ball on Sunday's game, but then what happened? It was like this liner down the left field line. It didn't really go all that far, and if the third baseman made a little bit of a better play, maybe it's an out. Overall, what we've seen from Xander Bogaerts is just not a lot. And while, yes, if you pull up his baseball savant, you'll see some really high rankings, right? He doesn't chase pitches. He doesn't whiff too much. He doesn't have the most egregious strikeout rate in the world, and he gets a decent amount of walks. But the problem is that a lot of that is because he's just not swinging, being aggressive as much as you would like for a player who you're expecting so much from, right? And I think that that's what's the issue here, right? Is that you expect so much from him. And as a result, with the ball going on the ground, with some poor defense, by the way, he's got -4 outs above average so far this season, which is extremely not great considering that he actually showed over the past couple seasons some decent defensive value. Last year, he finished with 5 outs above average at second base. And then in 2023, he finished with 3 outs above average at shortstop. Like, he actually played some decent defensive ball. Now, here's the thing. Defensive stats, it's a small sample size. These things, he can have 2 games of making some really great plays, and then the system will flip, right? Like, it does vary a little bit. But overall, what I think that I'm seeing from Xander Bogaerts is a player that people are tired of. I mean, on Friday's game, I'm sorry, not Friday. It was Saturday's game. My apologies. Saturday's game, you saw kind of the ultimate bad Xander Bogaerts game. And that's what I feel like inspired me to do this episode, which is it could just be an internet thing. It could be a Twitter thing, right? That could be it. Maybe I'm reading the Reddit boards a little bit too much, but it really feels like this was a bad weekend, not just for the Padres because they got swept and they've now lost 8 of their last 11 heading into the San Francisco series, but there was a real vibe of like, oh my God, Xander Bogaerts is just the new Hosmer. A allegation that I really pushed back against, especially this offseason, where there's a lot of different things that made Eric Hosmer so detested by the fan base, being that on top of his big contract, it was the fact that he always seemed to get defended by media when he did poorly. And then we would never see him, do these press conferences. The fact that he never endeared himself to San Diego. He wouldn't go on the radio shows. There was always a vibe of like he never wanted to be here. And every time there was criticism brought at him, you had someone coming out of the woodwork saying, but he's so good in the locker room. Something that fans do not see. So as a result, it's very hard for fans to not get mad at that stuff, right? With Xander Bogaerts, we haven't had that. He's just been a player that hasn't performed up to snuff. And in fairness, his first season, he delivered a 4.6 wins above replacement season because he played some decent defense and he did get on base. However, he was atrocious in the clutch, right? Just like the rest of the team. But at least you saw some of the skills there. And in that season in 2023, a lot of the poor stretches, you at least had something to attribute to, which was his wrist. Now, the wrist is a long-term injury, which we're going to talk about, but he did get hit by a Spencer Strider fastball, and then he just completely declined after that. So it's fair to say, hey, this guy has a long-term wrist problem, and he got hit on the wrist. So that might explain why he performed so poorly. But so far, right, I was just mentioning that Saturday game. What did he do in that game? A whole lot of bad stuff. He had an error that put the game-winning run on base. Then he struck out with runners on second and third. And he struck out looking with a runner on second to end the eighth, right? All these guys, Tatis, they're trying to do their best, but he can't seem to do anything. In terms of runners in scoring position this year, Xander Bogaerts has been basically as bad as you could have expected, right? Like genuinely appalling how bad he's been. He's got a 48 WRC plus with runners in scoring position this year. That's a 167 average. And when he does get a hit, he's not driving anybody in, right? And that's the crazy thing. He hasn't had an RBI since April 8th, guys. He doesn't have a single home run. This is as bad a start or stretch as we possibly could have hoped for Bogaerts, who was a player that heading into the season, my vibe is, this is a bust in the sense that this contract is not going to age well. And that was something that was probably going to happen anyway when you gave a guy, right, at his age, which is currently 32, right, but when they gave it 30, at his age, an 11-year deal, right? Like to give a player like that, a player who, while very skilled, very talented, had a lot of great moments in Boston, no one's taking that away from him, was a little bit of a question, right? Like he had a lot of years where you're like, did he get a little bit lucky? Were the Fenway Park dimensions helping him out with some of his offense, right? Some of them. But he was also really consistent, so you were like, hey, at least for the beginning of this contract, even if the power goes away and he was only a 15 home run guy, he could play some good defense, he's got good speed, and he's going to hit a lot of doubles, right? Over the last few years, he was one of the league leaders in doubles. That's just what Xander did. That's the X gave it to him, right? But what we're seeing now is that he's just not performing. And then in this game, on top of that, right, he also had the error this weekend in which he had a throwing error and an error in the infield in which a pop fly, he reached over Jose Iglesias and then dropped the ball, right? Like interfered with Iglesias catching the ball. He is on thin ice, I think, with Padres fans right now. And there's a lot of reasons for that because this team is good, right? Like this team has a lot of talent. And it got heightened more this weekend with the absences of Jackson Merrill, Luis Arraez, and Jake Cronenworth. By the way, Luis Arraez expected to return for the San Francisco series, so that's good. I saw Jackson Merrill hitting some balls during his rehab stint. That's cool. So these guys are going to come back. But the camera's on you. And unlike Manny Machado, where the numbers are there, he's hitting the ball hard. It's just not quite there. You had that great catch by Chandler Simpson. That's not the case with Xander Bogaerts. And it's actually pretty impressive that, again, he seems incapable of driving in runs. That's a problem. And we're going to keep talking about it, guys. But first, a word from our sponsors. And that sponsor, guys, is, of course, a wonderful one. Why did I use the word wonderful, though? Because we're talking about the folks that deliver the pistachios that are wonderful, guys. That's right, wonderful pistachios. Took me a little bit to get into that, but if you're looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious, crack into a good source of protein with wonderful pistachios. Wonderful pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help you feel fuller longer. I love it. I like the no nuts variety, or the no shells variety, not no nuts. Duh, no shells variety. I like the, kind of honey roasted flavor if they have different flavors for you. But all in all, I'm all for the originals. I like cracking open that. It feels great. So, folks, get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. And just like that, folks, we are back thriving and vibing here in the second segment of this podcast. Unlike, unfortunately, our boy Xander, who is the subject of this episode. Remember, guys, thank you to all my everydayers for making us your first listen every day. Go check us out. And of course, follow me at Javipeno, JAVIIPENO, on Twitter/X and Blue Sky to have your questions and concerns addressed. But when it comes to the concerns, guys, Xander Bogaerts has many of them. And I think that another factor to Xander Bogaerts is that it's so frustrating for fans, and I want to give voice to that. And I hear you. I'm right there with you. It's so frustrating to have had that Eric Hosmer contract, which was a dark cloud over all the sunny vibes in San Diego. And I don't want to rip the guy too much. I think it's almost become a little bit played out to a degree. I'm part of that problem, but the bottom line is everything I posted apart what it wasn't just the overpaid and not a successful player. It was the fandom was like, this guy doesn't care about us. He's never speaking after a loss. And then media people come in and say, hey, but he's a great leader. And then you don't see it. And then he's snapping at reporters after they ask him about the trade request. Meanwhile, you look at other players who get trade requests questions and they don't snap the same way. I understand why people were so frustrated with him. And Xander hasn't quite had that moment yet. I'm scared that he might. I'm scared that maybe he'll snap. Maybe he's going to be frustrated. Granted, he, unlike Eric Hosmer, when he was good, was objectively like a very good, very consistently good player. And that's what's so frustrating about this whole thing. And even more so about Xander Bogaerts is that you'd think that he would have thrived in this lineup, right? Ensconced in a really, that was a wild word to use, in a near, like encased, I should say, let's say that word, in a near impenetrable trio, a dynamo of stars, right? He doesn't need to even be what he was with for the Red Sox, right? You just need to be, at this point, I really do think, if Xander Bogaerts put together 115 WRC+, if he puts together a 3, maybe 3.5 win season, I think that's all really we're asking for. You don't need to be a star. You don't need to be specifically a superstar. This is unlike previously, where maybe Eric Hosmer, there was a lot of expectations because it was the first big kind of major contract. I know it wasn't the first one. I know Will Myers, I'm going to get to him in a second. But it was kind of like one of those big deals, like you got a World Series champion on your team, and you were expected to be that co-star with Manny. Will Myers, you were given a big deal, right? But everybody kind of knew, it feels like they're reaching a little bit. They just want a player that they can call their own that's a little bit of a star. And yeah, they overpaid a little bit for him. But with Xander Bogaerts, it's like, you've got Manny, you've got Jackson Merrill, you've got Tatis. You just have to be a decent player, right? You just have to be, dare I say, the Chris Taylor, from years ago for the Dodgers, right? You just have to be the, Teoscar Hernandez, like kind of like Teoscar Hernandez is objectively just a great player. He'd be kind of a star on more teams, if not for the Dodgers, but that fifth guy who everybody likes and just contributes and does well, right? You just have to be Alec Boehm, of the Philadelphia Phillies. You have to just be Brandon Nimmo of the New York Mets, guys of that nature, because the other stars are around you. So I think that's what's also contributing to this, because it's just, you don't want too much. And don't get me wrong, at times this year, Xander Bogaerts has had some really hard hit balls, right? Like we've talked about this, especially at the beginning of the year. He has shown a higher hit rate in that regard. He has also had a better bat speed. He's been a little bit more aggressive in counts this year, which is one of the things that plagued him last year. The big thing last year was just that he was always getting a first pitch strike, right? 66.3% of the time. This year, it's down to 58.3%. Which is much lower than usual. That was actually the number that it was at back in 2021, which is a really good season for Bogaerts, by the way. When he posted a 129 WRC+, like there's a hope that he can get better. But bottom line is, I see this. I see a hard hit rate that has gone down heading into the season every year since 2021. And it's spiked up a little bit. It's at 37%, which is higher than it was these past 2 seasons, both in 23 and 24. But I also see a rise in strikeout rate, right? That increased every single year. And then I saw a decrease in his walk rate, which is back this year. So you're kind of looking at this going, what's going on? But then I look at the overall numbers and his expected weighted on base is 297. It's not like he's getting unlucky. The guy just doesn't seem, his swing, let's forget stats for a second. His swing feels weak. It feels like he's hurt. It feels like that wrist might be cooked. That is why I'm worried about Xander Bogaerts. Because while, yes, it's easy to say, well, he's hurt. Yes, but the problem is that this might be a long-term injury. And here's the thing that I like talking about on my podcast sometimes is that sometimes there's injuries that affect your playing, especially in baseball, for years to come. And it's just like you took a little bit too many hits, you're beat up now, versus injuries where you're not playing. And I think just because Xander Bogaerts is playing doesn't mean that he's not going through something, right? Because bottom line, and I did not realize this when they first gave out this deal, he has this long-term wrist issue. And I think that has plagued him. I think the fastball has hurt him significantly. I think that might have really messed him up. I know that he hit well at some point that year. But overall, what I'm seeing from Xander Bogaerts is a player that is just really killing this team. And for you to just get out of the Eric Hosmer situation, you finally got out of that. We're like, okay, no more albatross. No more, Bleacher Report articles every single year where it's worst contracts in baseball and Eric Hosmer is one of the top ones next to Steven Strasburg or Anthony Rendon, right? Now, you literally just got out of it. You know what I mean? You just got out of it and you're right back to it. And I think that that's what's so frustrating about Bogaerts. I don't really have anything to suggest that it's going to get better. I don't think he's a 240 hitter, but is he like a 260 hitter? Maybe, right? I like that his walk rate is back because last year his walk rate was significantly not helping, right? It was 6% last year. It was the lowest of his career since 2015, right? But what I'm seeing is a guy that's not barreling the ball. He's not putting the ball in the air. This guy doesn't have a home run. Luis Arraez has 2. He's 2. Luis Arraez has 2 home runs this year, right? And to think that he has less RBIs than some guys on this team that haven't even played in a while, by the way. Jake Cronenworth, if I'm not mistaken. Does Jake Cronenworth have more RBIs than Xander Bogaerts? I think he does. Let me look this up really quickly. He has the same amount of RBIs as Jake Cronenworth, who's played 12 games this year. Well, Xander Bogaerts, do you know how many games he's played? He's played 28. Same number of RBIs. He's not driving anybody in. And Jake Cronenworth has been out for like 2 weeks. I am just so deeply, deeply scared of what's happening with Xander Bogaerts. I'm not saying that he's the only problem with the Padres, right? Like, he's clearly not. I think that there's overall a huge issue with the depth of this lineup and the fact that none of their minor league guys have contributed basically since being called up. But I look at this as a player who's going to be here for a long, long time. I'm almost scared to remind people of the year that he will be on this team, right? Like, when he's finally going to be on this team, what is he going to look like? You know what I mean? What is he going to look like by the end of 2033? 2033. He's going to be getting paid, not 27, $25 million a year. And while I don't care about that money necessarily in a vacuum, I just don't. Like, it's teams, it's owners, and it's rich people, right? But it's going to affect their ability to spend elsewhere. And you're just going to have this giant albatross. And I think that overall, it's possible we need to discuss, is this the biggest mistake of the A.J. Preller era, even more than Eric Hosmer? Because at least Eric Hosmer, now I don't agree with this, and we're going to answer, let me actually bring up the question from Tony Sue that he put out a while ago. If you trace Padres' recent history, you do realize that Manny didn't sign with Padres out of the blue only because of Preller promises, right? Without Myers, you wouldn't have signed Hosmer. Without Hosmer, you wouldn't have signed Manny. Even very recent transactions have had big impact making today's team possible. When the deal for Soto was made, the Padres had one of the best farm systems, but all that talent in the minors was at least a couple years away, and minor league talent is never a guarantee. to make the majors. So Preller traded all that minor league talent for Soto, unquestionably a generational talent, which not only converted an entire farm of promise into instant big league proven ability, but has since transformed again into several major pieces of today's big league club, while the previous farm talent is just now fully appearing on the Nationals. So you can hate on Hosmer's personal stats, but he's an essential cornerstone of building today's team. I think it is a huge mistake, personally. I understand the theory, but I think it is a ginormous mistake to assume that Myers is how you got Hosmer and Hosmer's how you got Mann. No, you were giving way too much credence to bad decisions and or bad contracts. You know why Manny Machado signed here? Because they gave him a big deal. And honestly, yeah, they probably sold him a little bit on the San Diego weather and the farm system. It does matter when you have that because it shows that you have some reinforcements coming and or you just have assets that will result in more major league players coming in. You just have a nice farm. That doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to bring everybody up. And I think that's another thing that's frustrating about Xander Bogaerts is remember that they didn't need to sign him. At least Eric Hosmer, no, that's a bad example because they had Myers. But with some of the mistakes they've made over the years, right, Mike Clevenger, they needed started pitching, you know? With some of these guys, you need these positions. And even if it was a miss, you needed it. With Xander Bogaerts, it's like you had Jackson Merrill as an infield prospect at the time. Now you have Leody DeVries. And also, you had Ha-Seong Kim back then. It's really scary, guys. And I feel like this episode has been a lot of me just saying things you already know. But I think that what we're seeing is that, you know, unless some sort of surgery happens maybe for this wrist, I don't know if that's on the table. I doubt it is. I just don't know what's going to change. I don't. Because this has been a trend for a few years now. This is not just he's having a bad start. Machado is just in a slump. We see the hard hit, right? We see, and he swings a lot at outside pitches. With Bogaerts, I'm like, if you just watch him, does it feel good watching this guy? It feels like he swings at the ball. He's like, you know, like me when I grab my trash bag and I just kind of, whatever, like I'm throwing it. You're going through the routines. I'm not saying he's not trying. Let me be very clear. But it feels like something has changed with him, possibly permanently. And I think it is fully fair to be on DEFCON 4 and be really like, this is it, right? Maybe he can have a moment in the future. It's not impossible. I mean, look at George Springer. George Springer looked like he was done. I know that's a random player to bring up, but it looked like he was done with the Blue Jays. Too many injuries, all that stuff. And guess what? This year, 166 WRC plus so far. He's back to the usual George Springer. And I don't think that it's entirely something that he can't keep going, right? Like maybe something can change. But until we see more evidence, I'm looking at a player that's going to be the biggest albatross in baseball outside Anthony Rendon. That's what it looks like to me. It does. And folks, that's not all. We got to talk about the Giants series. But first, just one more word from one of our sponsors. And folks, that sponsor is the legendary folks over at what, folks? What is it? It's FanDuel, ladies and gentlemen. We love FanDuel here on the Locked On Padres because the NBA playoffs are here and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love that they make betting so easy, whether it's picking your favorite team, diving into player props, whatever it is, from three-pointers, steals, assists, rebounds, maybe ejections, if you want to bet on the Warriors series, right, with Draymond Green and Dylan Brooks, right, maybe. I'm kidding, but you get my point, right? They have all your bases sort of covered. It's great. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. And just like that, everybody, we're thriving and vibing into the final segment of the show. Thank you for making us your first listen every day, free and available on all platforms. We love you. Thank you. We love you, Friar Faithful. Now, let's talk about the San Francisco Giants series. One thing that I also want to keep an eye out for is obviously the Xander Bogaerts thing, right? We'll see if Luis Arraez comes back and if he's good, right? We hope that he's good. It doesn't seem like it's the type of injury that will stay with him, right? 7-day IL is actually pretty rare, which is pretty like, it's like funny. It's like $2 bill of injury designations, right? Like you just don't see it all that much. Really great that he's probably going to be back in the lineup, and it was expected. It was expected. It didn't seem like he had a long-term injury or anything like that just this past week. And he will be a welcome sight because even though Arraez has not been at what I think we're hoping he can be, which is a guy who could be like a 130 WRC plus, who could just be an absolute menace at the plate, right? Like he absolutely can be that. He has still been infinitely better than a lot of the stuff that we've seen so far from this team this year, right? 115 WRC plus, we appreciate it. But folks, let me tell you. The other story about this series is the Padres offense needs to wake up at some point. And I'm actually starting to wonder, and I've mentioned this on the show, I feel like we saw this weekend a little bit of Tatis pressing. And it worked at points, right? He had 2 doubles in a game. But I am wondering if the ground ball rate is up there, right? He has one of the highest ground ball rates in all of baseball, Fernando Tatis Jr. I'm not making that up. Like, there's very few players that have a higher ground ball rate. Now, that's not awful because he still barrels the ball and he hits the ball super hard. But what it does tell me is that he might be a guy that's pressing a little bit, right? He's getting a little bit more impatient. And I think that's because of the fact that the lineup is just really not great. By the way, 20th in baseball in ground ball rate. So it's not as egregious, this isn't be all and end all. I'm just giving an example, right? But it just feels like I've seen at bats with him where he's really pressing at the plate, trying to do too much, going back into his old ways of being a little bit too aggressive. I think we'll be fine, but it's something to look out for. And it's also understandable because he has literally been the only thing on the offense for the last week and a half. And Tyler Wade, hilariously enough, right? And the Tyler Wade thing, I don't think is going to continue. But man, this San Francisco series is huge. It's only 2 games, but the NL West standings, as everybody's talked about, they've been absolutely nuts, and it just really sucks that they've completely lost their lead that they had. They're now 3rd in the division. They're a game back behind the Dodgers, and they're 2 games back behind the Giants. This would be a really nice division series win, or even a split if you can get it, or frankly, just show us some life, show us some offense, because this Giants team is here to play, and we've got a gem for tonight's game. It's Nick Pivetta versus Logan Webb. Logan Webb, guess what? He's really good. Dare I say, I've been saying he's a top 10 pitcher in baseball for a while now. I know that his ERA hasn't always suggested that, but this is a dude that's rocking a low FIP every year. 2.72, 3.03, 3.16, 2.95, 1.81. The ERA has been bloated a couple years because the Giants haven't played the best defense. But you know what's helping? Having Willie Adames, having Matt Chapman, and also having Jung Hoo Lee. Jung Hoo Lee, super duper duper big player for them. It's cliche to say, right? And I think that you can almost remember when they added Juan Soto to the deadline, they were like, they're also getting Tatis from the deadline. Like, it's like by association, you're kind of getting that addition because you haven't had him all year. Jung Hoo Lee is basically that for them. This is a guy that does not strike out. He has a good walk rate, and he hits for a decent amount of power. He's got 3 home runs. This, not a surprise for anyone who is a lunatic like me who keeps up with athletic writers and beat writers for division rival teams every now and then, that they talked about, like, he hit power in spring training last year. He has power. Is he a 30 home run guy? No, I don't think so. But people were assuming that this guy wasn't going to translate because of the league that he's from, but it absolutely is translated. You have that along with Matt Chapman, a player that I was once slandered for suggesting that maybe they should sign him and save a little bit of money over extending Manny Machado. Of course, who cares? Because Manny Machado is still very good. But you get my point. I was being slandered. Matt Chapman, off to a great start, 130 WRC plus. Mike Yastrzemski, having a little bit of bounce back season so far, 150 WRC plus. Tyler Fitzgerald, a little bit of a surprise because Tyler Fitzgerald's numbers last year were a little bit like you were selling out for some power, and I don't know if it's going to keep up, but he's been very good this year with a 123 WRC plus. Heliot Ramos, 98. I actually think he's a little bit better than this. I think he's going to be better as time goes along. But bottom line is he's a decent hitter. And he had a wild moment the other day, by the way. I don't know if anybody saw the Little League inside the park home run when they had a throwing error to first and a throwing error to third. And then they walked it off. Just crazy, right? Like, the Giants have had a real ridiculous season. Lamont Wade not playing great for them so far. He's got a 35 WRC plus. Willie Adames, 58 WRC plus. So hopefully those 2 guys, especially Adames, can stay cold for at least the rest of this series, because I don't think that they're going to. Willie Adames, one of the top free agent acquisitions this past offseason. He's actually a player that, like, I do think it wouldn't shock me if he lessens a little bit, right? But overall, the power is legit. He's going to hit like 25 home runs and play great defense. That's kind of what they need, right? They just needed a W for once. So yeah, it was a little bit of an overpay, sure. But I look at that guy and I'm like, Dansby Swanson, it's the same type of numbers, right? So how can you hate? He's going to get going at some point for them. But this defense is going to be a problem against guys like Xander Bogaerts, who's been hitting the ball hard, but not enough line drives, not enough into the air that I could see a world in which he gets robbed by the BABIP gods and he hits one, 104 miles per hour and it's an out and all those things. And I can't really get upset just because of the Giants defense. They also have Patrick Bailey, who's going to be great. So all that is why Logan Webb might be a Cy Young guy this year, who I was talking about, by the way, before the season. Nick Pivetta, love that though. That kind of cancels out their pitching advantage. And I think that the Padres have a better bullpen than the Giants, even if it is a pretty good one. We'll see how it goes though, because Pivetta versus Logan Webb, that's as good as you could go for. I'm just excited for some good baseball. Really excited for that game. And then the next game is Michael King versus Landon Rupp, who has a 4.56. He's not particularly amazing, but here's the thing with this Giants team. What if the Giants are the 2024 Padres in the sense that they just know how to show up when it matters, right? These things don't track year to year, right? And for the Giants so far, they've just been the team of dreams. It's also true that maybe at some point they're not going to win games on the last second from Wilmer Flores and from inside the park Little League home runs from Heliot Ramos. So maybe there's some hope that this Giants team is playing a little bit above their heads right now. But let me tell you, the guys that are producing, I see it staying. Jung Hoo Lee, Matt Chapman, I see that staying. Maybe a little bit of Yastrzemski, maybe just a little bit, tiny bit, just a tiny bit. And I definitely see Patrick Bailey still being an awesome defensive player. And when it comes to the rotation, I think that, what's his face? Give me a second. Robbie Ray, I think he's going to be a decent player, right? At least decent. He's got a 3.73 ERA right now. I think he's going to be decent. Logan Webb, I think that's going to stay the whole way. Justin Verlander, by the way, he's showing something, right? He's showing a little bit of something. I think overall the pitching for them is not going to be great, but the offense could be very good. And if they are able to trade from someone at the deadline, if they call someone up, they could be dangerous. They could be dangerous. But I'm optimistic that this Giants team is just having a really good start and you're seeing the pieces for them and that they're going to be a problem in the future. But I still don't believe that it still feels like it's Logan Webb in that rotation and that's it. It really does. But bullpen, folks, they got some hitters in there, man. They got some hitters. At least every now and then. They have some good stuff. Birdsong's been good in 16 innings, right? I'm excited for this series, though, man. First division rivalry matchup that isn't the Rockies of the year. So could this be a race of what we're going to be seeing all year? Yeah, the Wild West. I know this episode has been a little bit all over the place. It wasn't expected that I was going to be myself for this episode, so that's part of it. But I'm excited, guys. I'm excited for the series. I hope you enjoyed today's show. Just kind of yapping. Let's call this the Yapping Tuesday, dare I say. And if you hated it, well, guess what? Also in your feed should be the Locked On MLB Squad Show, where I don't know what the topics were. I'm not going to lie, I didn't see it, but it'll be a bunch of the other Locked On MLB hosts talking some regular, general baseball topics, which should be a lot of fun. So it's a little bit of bonus double episode Tuesday that you can look forward to, guys. But until tomorrow, we're going to be recapping that series. We're going to try and get the Pittsburgh Pirates Locked On Pirates host for another crossover this Friday. But until that next time, guys, stay safe and, of course, stay faithful. My Friday Faithful homies, take care.